Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. We'll start promptly at 1 o'clock. Hi, everyone. My name is Felicia Houston, and I am the Assistant Director of Digital Media and Operations for the IEP Technical Assistance Center. And I will be the moderator today for the session. Welcome to the Breaking Down Barriers Fall Symposium presented by the Indiana Council for Exceptional Children. Thank you for joining us today. This session will be recorded to share out after the conclusion of the symposium. We are hopeful that you are going to walk away with valuable information that will help you in your role supporting staff, students, and the entire school community. Before we begin, I will ask that you are aware of these few items. Questions should be entered into the Q&A box. At the end of the session, we will allow the presenter to answer as many questions as time will permit. Sessions will be recorded and will be shared after the symposium has ended. Keep an eye out for an email from the Indiana Council for Exceptional Children. At the end of today's symposium, you will be asked to complete an exit ticket. We will invite you to provide feedback which is a valuable gift to us. Now, I am pleased to introduce Tammy Overpeck. Tammy is a wife and mother of 4 with a passion for teaching. Tammy's purpose in her work is to create relationships, inspire and propel students to laugh, giggle, and hold their heads high for who they are and where they are going. From empowering colleagues on intentional and specialized instructional strategies to helping little ones tie their shoes, teaching is what sets a fire in her belly and fills her up. Tammy is currently a consulting teacher focusing on reading and instruction with the Office of Special Services in the MSD of Wayne Township. All right, and I'm going to sneak back into backstage and we will get started. All right, you are good to go.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm excited about our time together. Gonna minimize. My name is Tammy Overpeck, and this is the meeting about us talking about breaking down barriers in literacy. And so we've already heard some great sessions this morning, and I'm excited to share what I want to share with you. I just thought I'll tell a little bit about myself, and then we'll get into some objectives. I do just want to make sure that we kind of have like a work time together so that you can kind of be thinking about the steps as we go through them. And then I'm going to give an example, and then I'm going to give you strategies. So I got my degree from St. Mary the Woods College in 1998. My mom was a teacher assistant in a special education classroom with some pretty severe needs. And I loved going into her classroom and watching her. And I also got into teaching because of the summers. And then when I started teaching, I just developed this huge passion for teaching and for students. So that's how I got started. I have been in and out of the public and private sectors throughout my career, and this is my 25th year as an educator, and I have a husband and 4 children. And so a lot of what drives my equity and my belief system is who I am and what I've been through. So I have past trauma in my life, from where my mom passed away when I was 14 and moved around 15 times. So I have a lot of those ACEs in my life, and then dealing with additional wives from my dad, trying to find someone that was like my mother. And then on top of that, now I have 4 children, and 3 out of 4 of them also have IEPs. And so just a whole learning experience. And so I just hope that you can feel supported and feel encouraged and also feel challenged. And we're mainly going to be talking about equity with literacy and how to deliver a quality instruction. So our objectives today, we have the first one, identify your belief system about what each of your students can do. The second one is identify areas in which your delivery of literacy instruction doesn't line up with your belief system. Identify areas of needed growth to develop equitable instruction. So this would be your mindset, your tool set, your skill set, and we'll talk more about that. And then the last part is identify your next steps for growth. Like, let's not stay complacent, because when we stay complacent, it's comfortable and we're not growing, we're not challenging ourselves, and we're not providing the best for those that are around us.
Hey, Tammy, can I interrupt you really quick?
Yeah.
Your PowerPoint did not pull over from backstage.
Oh, okay. Let's see. What do you, let's see, suggest here?
You should be able to click share screen and then just reshare it.
Okay. I can't even find where you are, Felicia. Let's see. That's hide video. Let's see. Oh, here's my Zoom. Shoot. I think I need help.
Does it give you an option in the toolbar below?
It says Zoom, and it has your, oh, here we go. Can you see now?
I cannot.
Okay. All I see is our slideshow and I see your name. I'm gonna try this again. The only thing that's popped that I see on my screen is your name in like a little black box.
Let's go backstage super quick.
Okay. Can you see me? So do you see anything?
I do not, unfortunately.
Okay. Do you see anything now?
No.
Shoot. Okay. Let me send it to you really quick.
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me FEL?
ICIA dot Houston, as in Houston, Texas, INDstate.edu.
Is it at IND?
Yeah. Sorry, everyone. Some technical
sorry.
difficulties.
All right. Is that good?
Yeah.
I can go on and talk though while you're getting that pulled up. So anyway, so grab a piece of paper, or if you're driving or listening, just think of at least 1 to 3 of your students, whether you're teacher record for or your teacher of service for. And what I want you to do is just write their names down or think of those students. So I'm going to lead you through a process that I go through so that I can get to the end to see what kind of specialized services do I need to provide to that student and how do I need to do it. And so after you have those down, then I want you to think about their eligibility. So in that second column, so I would like you to do like 7 columns across. That's like the process. So the first column is like their name, and then next to their name, what's their eligibility? So their primary, their secondary, if they have multiple, what's their eligibility? And put that next to them. So they could have a specific learning disability, fetal alcohol syndrome. Maybe not all scars are visible. There's a visual I have on the PowerPoint that you'll see eventually where maybe they have past trauma, ADHD, autism. And I put a picture, once you see the PowerPoint, there's a picture of like an AAC device. So maybe they have difficulty with expressive language or receptive language. In the third column next to those students, I want you to think of their strengths. And these are the strengths that when you're working with the student, when you're sitting at the case conference, you're pulling information from the parent and from the student and from the team. Are they good at art? Are they creative? Are they good with words? Do they just have a great personality and they're flexible, they're compliant? Maybe they're a concrete thinker. That is a strength, because then we can teach in that way. Maybe they're a visual learner, auditory or kinesthetic learner. So really think about that column for their strengths. In the next column, concerns. What are the team's concerns? What are the parents' concerns? The concerns are what drives the goals in your plan when you're writing the IEP or service plan. And so look at the books, like maybe the parent says they can't read. Maybe they don't know their letters. Maybe they're exhausted all the time, or they just don't care or seem like they care. Another visual I have on this page for concerns is maybe the parent said, you know what, I think they have dyslexia. I think they learn differently. Maybe the parent feels like they can't speak it very well. And so whether that's maybe it's just their pronunciation, or maybe in full sentences, maybe they're hyperactive or they have difficulties in spelling.
Hey, Tammy, we've not gotten it yet. This is Todd. Can you share it to my email address? That may pop up easier
Sure.
for you.
Sure.
Thank you.
No problem.
There it is. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm on objective 1 under concerns. Thanks, Todd. So I'll just go back since we've been having a little bit of trouble. Sorry. So you're choosing 1 to 2 students, put them down in your column, and then next to them, their eligibilities, and then just a few of their strengths, some concerns that the team has shared, and then objective. So like for objective 1, I said, identify your belief system about which each of your students can do. So here's where I really want to challenge you is like, what do you believe about that student's ability? Like, do you believe that student can learn to read? And I really want you to challenge yourself on this. Do you believe that you're going to get present levels and teach your student with expressive difficulties? Like, are you going to do that? And can you do that? Do you believe that your students have literacy gaps? And like, what do you believe about those? Do you believe they can progress? Do you believe that your student could be taught sounds and letter patterns past primary? Like, what do you believe about that student? Because that is very important. Yeah. Do you want me to navigate it, or can you? We're down on after objective 1. Yeah, thank you, Todd. So then let's go to objective 2. So the second objective we have is identify areas in which your delivery of literacy instruction doesn't line up with your belief. So remember, I just asked you in the previous slide, what's your belief about the students' level of literacy? Do you believe that you can teach them to read, or do you believe that they can read? Unfortunately, I am all over the place in Indiana. I do hear sometimes, and teachers say to me, they're too low for me to teach to read. I also have heard someone say recently that said, well, I think they're just going to be in a lower placement anyway, but so we're not sure what else to do. And so if you hear some of that lingo, like that's where, or you feel that, there's no condemnation necessarily, but there we can't stay there, and you need to reach out to me, reach out to others that you know in your building that can give you ideas, and you can collaborate on specially designed instruction. It is our responsibility to provide the best instruction to our students as possible. And if we're not doing it, then who is? And so I just really take it personally. So I really want you to look at this, because where you provide the instruction and how you do it, how you deliver it, is vital. All right, can you go to the next slide for me? Thanks. And so why do I need to provide intentional teaching strategies and methods? And what do I try first? So I just want to make sure we all understand Tier 1 is universal instruction. So that's the general education setting, right? That's all the curriculums aligned to the standards of Indiana. Tier 2 are those pull-out systems, those students that aren't performing as strongly, and so they're pulled out maybe into small groups by the school. And then when they're not progressing after a certain amount of time, then we see Tier 3, and which is the students that we service in special education. So if you're teaching letters to sound, symbol to sound to picture in Tier 1, if that's what they're doing, now they're incorporating more kinesthetic strategies. And then in Tier 2, they're doing the same thing, but in a smaller group. In Tier 3, you should not be doing the same thing, because it wasn't working in Tier 1 and Tier 2. So what methods do we try to propel those students and to help them progress? All right, next slide. And when you teach according to the student's area of disability and their strengths, that's equity. Can you go to the next one? We had a speaker come recently, and she did an amazing job on equity on her PD, Dr. Aziz. And she said, if I have a value of equity, which are my beliefs, and actions are actively focused on dismantling the structures, policies, institutions, and systems that create barriers and perpetuate systemic inequality. So look at that first sentence. What are your beliefs about that student? And do your actions, that means what instruction you are providing to them and how you're doing it, do they line up? And so I want you to be thinking about that, and we're going to do an example. All right, the next slide, please. So administering informal present level assessments, interpreting data, checking for progress, and adjusting teaching and delivery methods is all vital. And we heard in a session this morning from Lisa Paddock from InSource, and she was talking about this too, and she said the #1 complaint to IDOE in the state of Indiana is lack of data to support present levels. If you don't know how to check a student's present levels, and you're just taking from NWA or whatever assessment that your school, your district gives, I want to teach you. So, or there are people that can teach you. So reach out to me, I can show you. I am going to show you some towards the end of this session, but in an hour, it's kind of hard to go through everything. But you know if you're doing an excellent job and teaching in the correct way with your strategies if the data is going up. Okay, the next slide. So our third objective is identify your area of needed growth. So as a professional, what do you need? Is it your mindset, which is your belief system about the student? Does that need to change? Are you more pessimistic or are you optimistic? What's your tool set? maybe you don't feel like you've been equipped. Maybe you just feel like you need some more training in these areas. Or maybe you have the training and you have a good mindset, but you're not sure how to deliver, which is skill set. So all of these are needed. All right, next slide. So be thinking about that on your paper. So I'm going to give you an example, just like I had you do on your paper. I just encountered a 7th grade student that a teacher called me over about. So you can go to the next one. Next slide. His eligibility is OHI, other health impairment. And can you go to the next slide? His strengths in the plan said outgoing young man, loves sports, specifically baseball, basketball, wrestling, loves Black history. Mom says student's smarter than what he thinks. He has friends, he communicates respectfully. These are all great strengths. Next slide. Concerns. So you're going to see some red flags here when I was going through the plan. So I spoke with the teacher, and then I looked at the student's current IEP, and this is what I found. Fall NWA reading said 1st percentile. This is from last year in the spring when he was a 6th grader, and he's now a 7th grader. Math, 1st percentile. Mom shared students hesitant to complete work. Mom hopes he can get more support. Mom says sometimes my screen's covered, has rough days. Significant deficits in reading, math, and written expression is what the team said. Significant levels of executive functioning, defiance, aggression, inattention. No IEP until 6th grade. So just last year. History of physical aggression towards peers, suspended for fighting, moved multiple times within state and out of state. All right, next slide. So identify the belief system about your student, what your students can do. So looking at the strengths, his eligibility, the concerns. Oh, can you back things? I believe, this is my belief, I believe there's a Y under those standardized test scores. I don't know what that is until I start working with the student, but at 1 percentile, did he just rush through it? Did he not understand? Did he have a bad morning? Was he up all night? Like, what was going on? But I do believe there's a why behind not wanting to start a complete work. If you really are at the 1 percentile in reading, oh my gosh, I wouldn't want to start it either because it's too hard. Moving multiple times has contributed to skill gaps. I believe that. That's my belief system about the student. I believe I need to connect with the student. If he's moved multiple times, maybe he hasn't had a consistent relationship with an adult who believes in him. I believe I need to check his present level literacy skills. And I need to find out how he learns best, because I have got to get buy-in from him and get the most bang for my buck when I work with him. Okay, next one. Next slide, thanks. And then identify areas in which your delivery of literacy instruction doesn't line up with your belief system. So there's a lot of clicking on this one. Go ahead and feel free to click. So like my belief system is that I need to provide specially designed instruction. So just like with behavior, when we ask what's the why, we go backwards to find out what the why is, the same as with reading. So in literacy, when we have someone reach out and they say, Tammy, I have a concern about the student reading, then my question is, what is it about reading? It's comprehension. What is it about comprehension? You know, you just got to keep asking, what is it and why? What is it and why, until you get to the root. So look at this. And so present levels within the plan says performed in low range. This was the evaluation, which was last year, 55. And so the graphic at the bottom shows the dark areas in the middle are 85 to 115 for average intelligence. And so, it's called a scaled score, I think it is. I don't know, I can't remember, a standard score. Anyway, and then one standard deviation to the left. I don't know if you can see those numbers. I think it says 70 to 85. And then two deviations below is 55 to that 70 range. And so looking at these present levels of 55 on a subtest, that's 2 standard deviations below average scores. And then breaking that down, word reading, which means decoding letters within words, was a 51. In reading comprehension was a 59. So all of them fell 2 standard deviations below average range. So can you click on another time on that screen? And so my question was, if these are the present levels, where is the instruction for specially designed instruction taking place? And what is the delivery method? Like, what are you teaching them to decrease the skill gaps, which is equity, right? And to help him succeed. So click on that screen again for me. So they had a reading comprehension goal, great. And then can you click again? And then if you click on this screen again, moderator, thank you, and click on it again, they had nothing for word reading. So if the student is having difficulty decoding words, which means probably they're having difficulty decoding sounds, do you think we need a goal for that? And the answer is yes. We have got to meet the students where they are and then pull them forward in the way they learn. Okay, next screen. So what's the why behind these concerns? And so I think I shared all of them with you. I just have so many questions when I see scores and when I talk with the teachers. Okay, and the next one. And so administering informal present level assessments, this is that next section that I was telling you about. So right now this student is, and there's like, I'm not bad mouthing what's going on right now at all. I'm just sharing with you right now. He's in the gen ed setting. He does have, in some of his classes, he has 2 teachers. And so that's really good. He has a special education teacher and he has a gen ed teacher. And so probably within those classrooms, he's getting reading comprehension goals, specifically design instruction met. However, with the decoding of literacy, I didn't see a goal. And so that's why I asked permission to give an informal present levels. You go to the next slide. And so I just want to make sure you guys know that in reading, like I said, you have to figure out what needs targeted. So that phonological awareness piece is like an umbrella. Think about pre-reading skills. Think about our preschoolers, kindergarten. This is rhyming. These are like learning your sounds. Phone means, sound. So you need all of that in order to move to the 5 areas within the strand of reading. So the 5 main areas are phonemic awareness, then phonics, then fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. You can find all this on the IDOE. They have everything on there and they've got lots of great links too. So I want you to look at this strand. So they had, right, the scaled score was a 51 in comprehension. So there was a goal for 51, but I want you to look what leads up to comprehension. Phonemic awareness, which is all the sounds. And so, Felicia, can you click on order of teaching right there? And Orton Gillingham, I am Orton Gillingham trained, and so the Dyslexia Institute of Indiana said that we could use this. There are 5 language layers to our language. And so I found that a lot of educators like myself didn't know this until I started on this quest to learn more. And when I graduated from high school, I could barely write 2 paragraphs. I had moved so many times and reading was so hard for me. And in college, I had a best friend and she just kind of taught me, and I just kept reading the same sentence over and over until I became fluent. And so I want you to know that, because that plays into my experience and my passion for why students need to know more. So that top, do you see where it says phonemes and graphemes? Phonemes means sounds and grapheme means you hear it and then you can write the letter. These are the initial sounds in our language. So like what the children learn in pre-K, kindergarten, 1st grade. Almost every student I work with, all the way up to 12th grade for the last 7 years, they're strong in these initial sounds, but beyond that, they usually just know some of their short vowels and nothing else. But if you scroll down, there are 5 layers. There are rules that you can teach. There are syllable patterns. So, and then if you can just go back to the PowerPoint. So look at that. But that's important because the student that I'm talking about, I have to go all the way back there, and I'll show you why, because I attached his summary of assessment that I gave him to show you the why. So all of this plays into part. You don't have to click on it if you don't want, Felicia, but I have informal sounds assessment. You guys are free to use this. During COVID, I just put, it just says request access, but I just put a copy so that you could copy the PowerPoint. It's all of those sound patterns in PowerPoint form. So you could pull it up and you just say to the student, can you tell me the letter and what sound does it make? And then you can just record for your present levels sheet. And then can you click on the informal present levels? See if it'll let you do that. Oh, it says require access. Well, I made a sheet there and it has all of the letters, and it has it all broken down from capital letters, lowercase letters, initial sounds, short vowels, long vowels, consonant blends, all of it. And so you can use that. Feel free to use that for recording. And then informal reading assessment, that's a PowerPoint with all of the words that have the letter patterns that you can use to record. And then down here is present, summary of present level skills. I wish we could click on that because that's the 7th grader skills that I was, I guess it's not going to work just because of the technical difficulty, but let me just look at his folder really quick. I can tell you, on this, I don't know if you can see this, but this is like what the sheet looks like. So right here, I check marked if he was able to see the letter and tell me the sound. That's the column. And then I had him get a whiteboard and I said, "Buh," and he said, "Buh." And if he wrote the correct letter down, and we did that all the way through all the letter patterns. So 26 letters make 114 sounds. That's a lot of sounds that we need to be intentionally teaching our students to progress them in the area of reading. He only knew 14 out of 20 initial sounds. He was at 11% total of sounds out of the 114. So you can see he is very low in that. And why is that important? I'm just going to try to hold this up. I don't know if it's going to work. Oh, well, I guess it's not. But if a student's low in sounds, like just being able to see the letter and give the sound, that's easier than it is to spell. But you have to know the sounds before you can pull that forward and write the letter. And so I didn't even check his spelling because I knew if I gave him those words, he couldn't do it because he didn't have the sounds. I hope that makes sense. I can't see you guys, but I hope that makes sense. The area of reading, usually students that have between 85 or higher IQ of intelligence, like so specific learning disability, students OHI, like, you know, when they have that higher intelligence, they just memorize the words. And so usually that reading portion is a lot higher. So if you see that in the 60, 70, 80%, they've memorized the words. But if you ask specifically the isolated sounds, no, they're usually okay, but then the spelling, usually that correlates. But so that's kind of the difference you can tell. So he hasn't been picking up reading either. And reading, he was low. I believe it was 20% of sounds he was able to read within the words. So CVC words, consonant blends with one vowel. Okay. You can go to the next page. So here's the meat of it. And if we can't access this, we're going to have to see what we can do. I put 4 strategies on how to intentionally teach reading. So it's kind of like a flexible skeleton, if you think about it, is how I teach reading. So, and then within each section, depending on the student and how they learn, I tweak it and change things up. But the first one, I would think about like least restrictive, like difficulty assessing grade level curriculum. So if a student, I wonder if we could pull that up. I'd call it SQ3R with a twist. So SQ3R, if you Google that, it's scan, like if you scan like a movie or you scan a sentence and then you ask questions like, what are the words I don't know how to say, or how do I pronounce this? What does it mean? So you're asking questions, you're teaching the student how to interact with the text so they can highlight or they can just circle the words. And then the 3R stands for, in SQ3R just by itself stands for read, review, recite. But our students struggle in the area of reading. So I say with a twist, because after I have them scan it and then find the words they aren't sure how to pronounce, or they don't know what it means or the purpose, then I say, okay, let's find out. Ask a peer, ask your teacher, look up on Google. And then they might draw a picture. Like one student, we were talking about dimension. So he said, oh, I think my grandmother has that. And so he drew a little picture of his grandmother. So that just helped with that for recall later. So scan, question, and then review it. And so I have them cover it up. What does this mean? Great. And then what's the picture? Like, look at your picture. What's the picture represent? And so that's what that is. And then on that link, it tells you exactly how to do it. And then it's recite, and then it's read. Once you depict the language within the text that the student is trying to read, whether it's a question in math or a paragraph or a study skill, they have to study for biology, they will be able to read it more fluently. The next one is difficulty with spelling. And so targeting the letter pattern for phonemes. And so this link, you probably won't be able to open it either. So, but I do have it attached in SCED. So in the conference link, you should be able to pull it up. And this is also from Orton Gillingham, but I see this with kids of average intelligence that are able to read almost anything, but towards like 6th and 7th grade up to high school, when I say to the student, hey, do you have any concerns? Is there anything that you feel like you really like me to work on with you that I haven't talked with you about? I will often hear them say, I just can't spell, like I can't write, and I'm so embarrassed. And so this is the tool you would use. And I do this like 5 minutes a week. So after I show them the strategy and then I give it to their parents, I give it to them, and then I see them practicing on their own. And I'll give you an example. On a piece of paper, if you can pull out a piece of paper, if I say the word or the sound eh, on your piece of paper, I want you to write the most common letter or letters that I would write the eh sound to the least amount. So how many ways can you write eh in the English language? And this is exactly what I do with them. And so since we can't project, I'll just write on the back of a piece of paper. We will just make it work is what we're going to do. So I don't know if you all know this. This is probably one of the easier ones. The letter E is the most common for saying eh in our language when it's sandwiched between, when you have two consonants, and EA. And so I'll say to the student, let's take the word bread, like the loaf of bread. And I'll say, I want you to take the most common way that we write the S sound in language. And so they would write B-R-E-D. And then use the second most common, and they would put B-R-E-A-D. And I'll say, which one's the loaf of bread? And they always get it right because they've had exposure to words and literature and they can identify it. So for those students that just need help with spelling and are really quick to pick things up, I have these strategies, and they have mnemonic devices and they have visuals with them. You can do one a week, and bam, you wouldn't believe how they progress with their spelling and their writing. And also you could email me and I can send all this to you. The third way is difficulty identifying sounds. This is a more intense reader, like the one that I just shared with you, the 7th grader. Reading letter patterns and words, difficulty with spelling, in need of intense reading interventions. And so it's another example, but we can't pull it up, but I'll just show you. I'll just show you on here. So for example, I would give the assessment that was on the previous page, and then I mark with check marks all of the letters that the student was able to identify, say the sound, and then the auditory drill, when I said the sound and they said it back, they were able to master. So the check mark ones are their mastered sounds. Those are the only ones I put in front of the student when I am working intentionally with them, and then I add one at a time. You say, well, Tammy, how do I know what to add? You know what to add because there'll be a blank. And so going from top to bottom, left to right. So the next thing I teach this student is SH. So you have access to all of these papers too. And so that's how I would teach this student. And this is important, so please write this down. You want to teach intentionally to the 3 pathways, that the way that we learn. We learn visually. You've probably heard VAK, visually, auditory, and kinesthetically. So whenever I work with a student, I'm going to show, I'll just show you. We typically learn from symbol to sound to meaning, right, through visual. So when I say symbol, I just mean the letter. So I just print this off. So symbol to sound. So, and then you would teach the sound, and on the back I put like what the sounds are. And so I teach visually, I go through their mastered sounds. And then the second one you do is you do an auditory drill. And I say, hey, do you want to use a marker board? Do you want to use your notebook? What would you like to use for this section? And I say, I'd like you to have your eyes up, and I only use their mastered sound. And I would say, k, and they say, k, and I say, write down any letters you know that say k. Eventually, as I teach them, they'll put the letter C, they'll put the letter K, and then they'll put the letter CK. But right now, most students only know that letter C says K, okay? And those are the kind of things that you've got to teach. We have to be systematic, we have to be structured, student-led. We don't move on until they have it mastered. And we have to teach them exactly where the sound goes within the word so that they can recall it. And so, and you probably already know this, but if not, the letter C can never go at the end of a syllable in the English language by himself. He only goes at the beginning of a word. The letter K goes at the beginning of a word. But CK, if they hear K at the end of a syllable, it's always at the end of the syllable. And so all of those things you're teaching one at a time as you're teaching the student. So you have your visual drill, your auditory, and then kinesthetic is just the combination of the blending drill. And that's your fair sounds. I'll just pull them out here and I'll show you. This is for a different student. I would lay them, so the letter C I would put in the front. Let me see. I'd put the vowel in the middle. If the student only knows their short vowels, then that's all I can teach them is at this point, but then I eventually start adding. So then on the desk in front, right, kinesthetically, I'm putting letters in place. Oh, that's not a fair one. I changed that because some words are what we call sight words, and phonetic language, which are all those letters that I showed you on the 5 language layers. Trying to find an easy ending sound, just a minute. Anyway, 85% of our English language are decodable sounds. That's why we can teach that. 15% are sight words. So we have to teach sight words at the same time, or we're not going to make as much progress as we want. Okay, so this isn't a real word, but if they can decode this, then they're increasing their fluency, right? Which helps with comprehension. So I have them take their pointer finger of their dominant hand that they write with, and that's their pointer finger. And I can't do it since I'm holding up, but they would, and I tell them, hold the sound till you get to the next one, because you've got to teach their ears to hear it. So they would say wab. And I just try to get them to go, and then you just keep going with their fair sounds. So that's the blending drill, using their finger. Doing those three, plus then you can ask them some words to spell, and then you can teach them 1 to 2 sight words until they master. Okay, and the last area that I really want to show you that I'm most excited about is thinking outside the box. I learned how to do this one day when I was driving with my daughter. My daughter's the youngest of 4 kids. My oldest son is an individual with autism. My second student child is typical. He's a senior in high school. My third son is, I have 3 boys and a girl. My third son, he has water that sits in his middle ear. So he had no language to 18 months till we got tubes, and he had braces on his feet, and he was just precious. And he has a specific learning disability, language and speech impairment. And then my daughter, who's the youngest, also was qualified for specific learning disability and language impairment. My daughter, she did preschool 3 days a week. And then she went to kindergarten and in 1st grade, and she still could not get her letters. She could not get the symbol. And when I mean symbol, I mean you show, right, the symbol, the letter, to sound. She could not get it. Another example is I frequent McDonald's, and going through McDonald's with her, we've been there like 100 times. And I said, "What would you like?" "I don't know." And she'd start crying. So she just would get so overwhelmed all the time. And so because she was confused, and that's that language impairment part of it. And so I was driving one day, and I thought to myself, you know what? If I ask her where my keys are, she knows where they are in the house. If I ask her where her backpack is, she can tell me in the house. But it was her expressive language, where she could, if I said, "What is that thing that we put our clothes in to dry?" She couldn't say dryer. She couldn't recall the name of the vocabulary. And, that's an area I've always struggled with. So I'm sure that's hereditary, and that's that language piece. But her visual pathway was so strong. So this is the part I want to talk to you about. If we've been trying the same thing in tier 1, tier 2, let's change it up and try something new. So if the student has a stronger visual pathway, and 60,000 images we can process faster than 100 words verbally. I saw that on the internet. Then let's create their own vocabulary, their own symbol, their own sounds, but let's teach it backwards. So instead of going symbol to sound to meaning through a picture, let's find out what their pictures are, what they know, and go picture to sound to symbol. Okay, so this is what I mean. These are a small group of students, but this is working. I've worked with many students, traumatic brain injury, OI students, students that are considered low, and they say, "Well, we don't think they can learn anymore." What else have you tried? So let's try something new. And as we're looking for progress. And so this student, the 7th grade student that I was telling you about, you saw the progress and the plan that I just showed you. And the first time I said, "Hey, can we try something?" And I said, "What do you think of when you hear owl?" And he said, "Lion." I said, "Okay, look, I'm going to try to teach you through pictures that you know." And he looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, just let's just try it. And so the next time I came to work with him, I made I actually printed these off for him. And I said, and he said key, and then another one for was cat, for C. But anyway, we made his own vocabulary, like his own dictionary with pictures. And I just remember what I just heard on the last speaker. He said, he said something so cool. It was Dr. Dinkins. He said, "I can't sell something to you that has no meaning." And that's what I felt like with my daughter. And for students don't fit in that typical way that we learn, I can't sell him a letter, a symbol that has no meaning to him. So you've got to teach the way that it means to him. And so I will tell you that first time I started teaching the 7th grade student, he mastered 10 new sounds. Typically I can do 1 a week at 2 times at 30 minutes. I'm talking for the week. He did 10 sounds he remembered just from his picture. So same way you teach it visually. So I just show it to him and he'll go, oh, g. And I'm leaving the letter because he doesn't have all his letters and the exposure will help. And so then you say, well, Tammy, how do you do the auditory drill? So then I'm going to say, I'm actually just going to say lion. And then, so I'm just going to say the name of the picture and then see if he can write down L. And then for the third way for blending, I'm going to teach it through the visuals. And so I might have this at the front and then I'll have he has a short E, he said egg. And then let's do a G at the end for leg. But I'll do it the same way. And also what's on the lesson there, I always make a PowerPoint and then I just print off 9 of these pages at a time for their cards. So kinesthetically, they have these to manipulate. And I say, do you want a copy for home? I can make you some, or do you want me to send you the PowerPoint so they can study if they have some extra time? So making sure whatever I'm doing that if there's a parent or guardian involved or that the student has access, but the same way. So then he goes, oh, egg, leg. And then eventually I'm going to take away the capital letters and then I'm just going to see if he can do the sounds. And then eventually I'll just do LEG. So you're layering your sports, so scaffolding your learning. So that's thinking outside the box with the learners that aren't getting symbols to sound, but you still teach in the same framework. Are there any questions right now?
As of right now, there are not any questions.
Okay. Can you go to the next page for me, Felicia?
Yeah.
Thank you. So we have 10 minutes left. I just wanted to share with you, we don't need to watch this now, but just on your own time, I highly recommend Barbara Oakley. She is amazing. I saw her at the Learning the Brain conference, but she talks about the power of intensity of instruction that is specialized in small amounts of time. And she talks about the dendrites and how things are locked into place. And so I just want to challenge you, think about your services. If you're an inclusion teacher in with a gen ed teacher and the servicements are for that whole class period, are you really providing, specialized instruction for 90 minutes a day, 5 days a week? Or are you really providing that specialized instruction maybe for 20 minutes out of that? Like really look at your provisions, make sure they line up with the goals and how you're providing the services, because all of this has to do with equity. And she just does a nice job talking about that. Can you go to the next slide? This is just an example of how I teach a student when they're in front of me. So connection with the student, I always do SEL with them. Tell me about what's going well for you. And I just listen. Just tell me anything you want to tell me. I don't give my opinion unless they ask me. I'm just building rapport in a safe place for them. Then we review previous skill that I taught them the previous time. I teach a new skill application, which are like, I give a word with a new skill or they try to write a word. And then we do kind of a checkout review and what we're doing next. Can you click on the next page? So this leads me to our last objective, to provide equitable reading instruction. What are your next steps as a professional? Like, what would you like to learn more about so that you can grow? Do you feel like maybe your mindset needs to change a little bit? Do you feel like you need some new tools, or do you feel like you need some new strategies on how to use the tools? And the next page. I want to end our time, and I just love Mr. Rogers. He says, as human beings, our job in life is to help people realize how rare and valuable each one of us really is. That each of us has something that no one else has or ever will have, something inside that is unique to all time. It's our job to encourage each other to discover that uniqueness and to provide ways of developing its expression. So I encourage you to find out how each of your students learn, like what are their strengths, and teach to that way. You go to the next one. And then the next page, can you go to the next page? I did put a link there, but there's a link that Felicia is going to give you. And then is there one more page? Oh, I want to give you two. There's a whole bunch of resources for you with links. So feel free to use any of those. And you can reach out to me. It's tamara.overpeck@wayne.k12.in.us. If you feel like you want some PD or you want some training or you just want to put our heads together and think, feel free to reach out.
All right, I'm going to pull up the link really quick for the PCG. All right, so I just dropped the link for your review. Thank you, Tamara, for sharing your expertise with us today. I apologize about any of the technical issues. One moment. My phone went off. Where was I? Participants, before you leave, please remember to go to the chat and complete the link to provide the feedback for the session and symposium. You can complete this feedback form after each session or at the end of the day. This form is required to receive PGP points for your attendance today. The link is also available on the symposium's main page on Sched. Thank you so much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of Breaking Down Barriers Fall Symposium and your day. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thanks, you guys.
Bye.